Open the door and come on in, 'cause this is where the fun begins. You don't have to be a penny or a dollar to step inside Gelato's parlor. This podcast can pass a test, and you'll enjoy my special guest. Take a seat and close the door, and join Mr. Ray to find out more. So let's hear you holler. Welcome to Gelato's Parlor. With your host, Ray Gelato. That's me. Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Gelato's Parlor. You just heard my very own theme tune, which I wrote just before Christmas, Gelato's Parlor. Now, we're in early January. We're beginning the third lockdown, and it's all getting a little bit miserable. So these podcasts are keeping me sane, and I hope when you listen, they'll keep you a little bit sane too. And I really hope you do listen, and I thank you very, very much for your listening last year as well. We had some lovely figures. Without further ado, my very special guest is Mr. Russ Kane, my coffee-drinking, cigar-smoking compadre. Now, Russ is a multi-talented guy. He's done so many things. He was the Flying Eye at Capital Radio for 20 years in the plane above London, you know, and the on-air partnership with Chris Tarrant. Russ has also hosted a show on BBC London. He's been a music business manager, which he'll tell you all about, the good, the bad, and the ugly of that. Russ is a drummer, and he has his own stand-up show called Candid Laughter. Russ appeared at the Crazy Coqs in London, among other venues, the Edinburgh Festival, and also in Los Angeles, and he was a big success over there. He's also a novelist who has written a great novel called The Gatekeeper, a highly acclaimed novel called The Gatekeeper. I can vouch for this because I read it, and it's absolutely fantastic. And it had a wonderful endorsement by the great Anthony Horowitz. More recently, Russ is hosting the men's radio station with Phil Dave. And the men's radio station is absolutely wonderful on Facebook. It deals with all sorts of problems of men's mental health. Anyway, without further ado, would you please meet the multi-talent that is Mr. Russ Kane. How are you coping in all this business, Russ?
It's driving me mad. It's driving me mad. You've got to take it day by day. You know, it's hard, but it's hard. It's hard for everybody. You know, we've never established this. And although the important thing to say is, you know, you've got a roof over your head, you've got food on the table, you're in reasonably good health. That's fantastic. But then the mental attitude of this is, it hits you hard. You can't see your friends. You can't see your family. I wasn't able to see my kids over Christmas for the first time ever, and that hurt. So what can you do? You know, it is what it is, and you gotta go with it.
But I've noticed through this. I'll mention in a minute. Obviously, the multiple talents of Russ Kane and the millions of things you've done in your life and your career, right? But
None of them He's done a lot of things.
But the other thing is, I've noticed in this, you know, from the beginning of this pandemic, how your radio show, the Men's Health radio show, has taken off. I'm backing up. I'm going right forward because there's a million things you've done before that. But how have you kind of found that? That's obviously kept you. It says mental health, but it's probably helped to keep you sane, having something to do. And this 3 times a week is the show.
It's been lovely. You know, we started women's radio station in January 2018, and then we started men's radio station in January 2019. Obviously not knowing that COVID was, who knew, right? And it's taken off like a rocket. And I get so many messages saying thank you, but really I need to thank the listeners all over the world because it's kept me sane and kept me going. And it's really important to have little markers in the sand because otherwise the week just stretches ahead and you think, well, what the hell am I going to do? So it's really good. I do 4 shows a week. We did do 5 shows a week, but it was just killing us. So I do that. But it's on, the radio is men's radio station and women's are on 24 hours a day. It never stops.
That's brilliant. And your partner, Phil Dave, as well. You know, because I noticed what a great rapport you two have, and I could see this thing. I could see this thing getting further. You know, if you get any plans on trying to do that, you know.
Well, you know, it's very rare and it's difficult to have an on-air radio partnership. You see so many of them where it's just forced and false, and it never works. I was very lucky at Capital that it just worked beautifully. And I've known Phil for years. And I said, well, why don't we do this, when we do the shows? Because I like to have someone to bounce off. It's better. And it's just really worked out. And, fingers crossed it continues to do so. It's serendipity. You can never tell how these things are going to go. You think you might have that chemistry, and then you start recording or get in the studio, and it's an absolute disaster because there's nothing. But it works out very well, and I'm not smart enough to work out the psychological reasons why it just does.
Well, you can't analyze it. It just does. And I think, when people make comments on that show, it's like a therapy in itself for those people, helping them. And
it is,
because we're all, this is not we're human beings, we're social animals, and not to be able to have that, or the way we've had that this year, like you and I and Colin Vaines, for example, we meet up for our cigars and that.
Sorry, Colin
Vaines. he was the guest before you, mate.
Never heard of him. Never heard of him.
And
does he wear a black hat?
He wears a black hat, and he's a film producer. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we had him on, and he was, speaking a whole lot of interesting stuff about Soho, and touched upon the same thing.
Why does he never talk interesting stuff when we have coffee and cigars with him? And never.
He's going to be very happy at this. Oh man! But these little interactions have meant so much in this really terrible time. And when they're taken away again, and like we're doing this on the Zoom, and thank God for it. But it's just so depressing when you can't have these kind of things. It's been like this yo-yo, this sort of what I call this okey cokey they've been playing, where 1 minute we can do it, 1 minute we can't, and I think that's almost worse.
Well, it's the whole thing. What is it? Better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. Not always sure. Not always sure that's true. It's like having something fabulous and then going, "Oh, you can never have that again." And you go, "Oh, okay."
We will, though. We will.
It will come. Eventually. I mean, eventually. I'm braced for another 6 months of this. In varying forms, but. It's interesting because suddenly, Doreen, the hairdresser from Stoke-on-Trent's an acknowledged global health expert. Well, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not. You can't listen to everybody. That's the way madness lies.
I listen to nobody now, Russ. I don't listen to any. I just do keep quiet and don't put the news on anymore because it's.
No, I haven't watched the news. I haven't watched news in years. Because I find it so depressing, and also propaganda in some ways, an agenda pushing in another way, and it's always depressing. And I don't want people's interpretation of the news. If you want to do the news, just read the news.
Yeah,
then to go. And now to our expert, Ray Gillard. Ray, what do you think? Yeah. Well, I don't care. Just tell me the event. Tell me what's happening. Don't give me an interpretation of it. I don't need it. I'm a grown up.
But what I said to you, when we first come in here a couple of minutes ago, that you're, when I look at what you've done, right, you don't really tell me because we just talk and we have a cigar and I know snippets. And I gleaned some information of what you've done when I saw your canned laughter show at the Crazy Coach, your stand-up, right? But you've done, honestly, I think, out of anybody I know, you've done more things. Let me just read. I'll tell everyone at the beginning of this. Flying Eye Capital Radio, 20 years, right, with the on-air partnership with Chris Tarrant. Yeah. You were a BBC London host, right? Yeah. You've managed to bring up 3 kids after the 4 children. Oh,
yeah, it was 3 plus VAT.
No, 3 plus VAT after your wife passed away, which is an unbelievable achievement itself.
Well, I have to say that I had huge help, which I could not have managed without. I just want to put that out there. But leave it at that. It's
what really all these kind of things. You've managed a girl band, which we'll touch upon in a minute if you want. You're a novelist, right?
Yes.
And you're and now you're doing the men's radio station. But what I've said, I learned what you did more on. Obviously, I knew about the Flying Eye, but on especially the stories about the hilarious things you were saying about the Flying Eye on Capital Radio when I saw your canned laughter show, which you said to me at the end. You said, I don't want to talk about this. It's been a disaster. And I thought the show was bloody marvellous. It was hilarious. Everybody was laughing. You seem to be the only one that didn't like it. But tell us a little bit about first canned laughter, then we've got the Flying Eye.
Well, hang on a minute. Let's go back to that. You perform. I've seen you perform. Do you know how we first met? But you've got no idea. I used to live in Streatham, and every day I walk my dog, and I'd always try and find a little cafe, have a cup of coffee, and go home on my walk. That's what I like to do. I still like to do it. And in this particular cafe, they did it was a little place called the Hideaway, not downstairs, which I'll come on to in a minute, but just they had a little cafe upstairs, and they had video screens. And I'm sitting having my coffee, and they were showing videos of people that they'd had. I didn't even know it was a venue, to be perfectly honest. I just thought it was a coffee shop. Didn't even know there was a downstairs, and which is huge. And there's like two other people there. I'm looking at the screens, and there's this bloke doing jazz and press ups, and he's jumping up. I thought, what the bloody hell is this? This is great. And I started to track you down because I was so impressed just by looking at the video. It was completely random. If I hadn't gone into the coffee shop, seen your performance, and thought, this is great. Who is this guy? He looks terrific. And, you know, it was playing. And I thought, this is great. And you were leaping around the stage like a lunatic. And that's how I sort of tracked you down. I think I said, I just saw your video, Mr. Gelato, blah, blah, blah. And then we became really good mates. It's weird. It's weird how things work out. It's just
absolutely weird. On Facebook, we've become pals.
Yeah, and then it was Facebook and everything.
Then I'd see you, you go.
But the point about it is, you perform. If you don't think you gave a good performance, everyone in the, Ronnie Scott's can come and go, oh, Ray, that was great. If you're not happy with it, you're not happy with it. I mean, I think that's any artist, right? If you don't think it was the best you could have done, or you're self-critical or something, it doesn't matter if everyone in the audience goes, oh, Ray, that was great. You'll go home and think, I could have done this better. I could have, that's how it was. And I did Crazy Coq's, which is a fantastic venue just off Piccadilly. And I wasn't exactly sure. The audience seemed to absolutely love it, but I wouldn't even come on for the encore. I just went into the dressing room, stared into the mirror, and started swearing at myself because I didn't think I'd given up my best. But everyone else seemed to absolutely love it, which was great.
No, I know that feeling. I know that feeling so well.
But I'm hypercritical. I'm hypercritical, and I never play, and I never have played competitive sport because the only person I'm interested in beating is myself. That's it. I only want to stretch what I can do and make it better for myself, for my own satisfaction. So that's why that particular night, it's called Caned Laughter, which is just a pun, obviously, on canned laughter. Yeah. And I mean, that came around by accident as per usual.
And you've also done, well, I know you've done Edinburgh, which I'll talk about, on the intro, but you've done LA as well.
Yep.
Where'd you play in LA, mate?
Santa Monica Playhouse. Took it over for a weekend, sold out every show.
And how did they take the humour?
Well, I rewrote the show for America. I rewrote it, and I mean, not only did it sell out. This is a theatre. They had to put extra seats on the stage. Extra seats on the stage. I couldn't believe it. I'm completely unknown over there. I did it all myself. I like to set these stupid challenges. I don't have a manager or an agent. And I just thought, where do I want to go? Where do I want to go? So I asked a few of my pals in LA. I said, where would be a place that I could? And they said, why don't you try this? So I went on the website, and it's just a lesson in never giving up. It said, no, you've got to submit the script and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, can't be bothered with all that. So I just wrote them an email explaining what I wanted to do. They came back within like 20 minutes, and I booked it up. Took myself over there, did all the publicity, sold it out. I've done it 3 times, I think. 2 or 3 times.
And what was it? Obviously, it's an incredible thrill to play over there as an English stand-up.
Fabulous. I loved it. I loved it. But the American audiences, as you know, I mean, you've travelled much more than I have over there, performed it much more.
Yeah, they're a good audience.
Totally different. Yeah. Totally different. Much more enthusiastic.
They're enthusiastic from the get-go, from the start.
Man, they love it. They love it. And also, LA's very odd. In England, especially London, you'd say, let's go see Ray Gelato. When's he playing? Oh, he's playing in 6 weeks' time. All right, we'll buy tickets now, right? In LA, I can't speak for the rest of the country, but in Los Angeles, they'll wait till like 4 PM. What are you doing today, Ray? Well, I don't know. Do you want to go and see a stand-up? Yeah, all right. And so when I'm looking at the ticket sales, they're not released on my computer, the systems I was using, till 4 o'clock. So I was absolutely on tenterhooks until then, because it looked like you sold nothing, and suddenly, boom!
That's unbelievable.
It's a different culture. It's a very different culture over there.
I like it. Do you?
I
I
love
like
it.
it. I like
I
it. A
love
lot
it.
of people knock
I love it.
America, and it's very
Yeah.
trendy to knock America. And
Oh,
it's
the hell with
let's not get in the
the
yeah.
hell
But
with it.
I
You
lived
go
there,
there.
Russ. I lived there in 2000 with Rebecca before the kids. We lived in Florida. I was running a band in a supper club, and I've never come across a friendly a bunch of people.
They're
It
fantastic.
made
I
me
lived
feel
there as
so
well.
welcome.
My daughter's American. I lived over there for 3 years. I absolutely adore it. I've always thought, I mean, to be brutally honest, I've always thought I was born in the wrong country.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I love London. I
Mm.
absolutely love London. Take me out of London, I'm kind of totally lost. But I just feel very at home over there. I lived, in New York. Now I spend as much time, well, in the old days, as much time as I could in LA. Got a lot of friends. I like the weather. I like you open your curtains and you got beautiful clear blue sky and a vast load of opportunities.
Yeah,
And
I
that's the
agree.
difference.
And
I don't
people,
like opening the curtains, seeing grey sky and you
no.
go, oh,
What I found over there was people would take a chance on you. You know, we'd only been there a matter of weeks. We were invited to a Thanksgiving dinner where there were some
yeah.
other musicians. Oh, this is Ray plays. Next thing, that leads to a nightclub engagement. You prove yourself there, you get another one. Now I find here in Europe, you've really got to prove you've really got to jump through hoops constantly. And I did find in America, one thing just led to another. The
It's a
snowball effect.
can-do attitude. It's a
Yeah.
can-do. It's a very different thing. It's a can-do attitude, which I've always enjoyed. I've always been fascinated by it. Since
Trendy to hate it, though, isn't it
about
now?
6.
Trendy
Who
to hate
cares?
it now. And
Who
no, but
cares what's
you know
trendy?
what
Who
that is,
cares?
don't you? I mean, we're not talking about politics or Trump or anything. I don't want to bring
Jealous.
anything.
They're
I
jealous.
think it's a lot of envy because it is
Of
that
course it
can
is.
do
Of
thing.
course
But
it is.
you were just talking about blue skies, right?
Hmm.
We have because these podcasts I like to keep them quite brief and short and just get a nice
Sorry.
overview.
Well,
of what
bye
you're doing.
everybody.
No, see you, Russ.
Thanks, Ray. It's great.
The Flying Eye capital. You know, how
Yeah.
the hell did that come about? And
Oh.
how did you feel about going up in a plane? Were you shitting yourself?
It came about.
No,
No,
go
that
on.
would have been quite unpleasant, as a matter of fact. Thank you, Raymond. It came about because my oldest friend is a lovely chap called Peter Suchet, brother of David and John Suchet, as in Poirot, etc. And my family and his family grew up together, and I knew his mum and dad. I absolutely adored them. I knew the grandparents as well. I mean, David Suchet's grandparents. That's how far back we used to go on holiday together and everything like that. And then so that was since we were like 14. And then Peter went into advertising, worked his way up the greasy pole from the post rooms those days. Worked his way up to be very, very senior at Saatchi and Saatchi. Saatchi and Saatchi had an account called Capital Radio. One day, Peter phoned me up. He said, "I've just had a meeting with the boss there, and they need a new Flying Eye." And I suggested you. And I said, "Well, fuck off, because I'm not interested. One, I am not getting in a little plane because it would scare the hell out of me. And two, it's mornings. I hate mornings." He said, "Oh, look, I've suggested you. It would get me off the hook." And they said, "Could you audition? Look, just do this." I said, "Office, I'll phone the guy." Never expecting him to pick up the phone. Phone the guy, get through to him straight. "Oh, when can you come in?" Okay. So I go, I had no desire to do any of this whatsoever. So I go to Elstree Airfield for an audition. They shove me in the back of this cockamamie little plane. And every 5 minutes but every 2 minutes they're going, "Are you okay? Everything all right?" And I'm thinking, this isn't like showbiz, because I was writing a lot of light entertainment people, and they're not that nice, especially producers. And I'm thinking, they're being very pleasant. And I'm so thick. What they were trying to do was make me sick. And they were trying to throw the plane around. And I was so entranced by the view, which was magnificent, because you're only 1,000 feet up. It hadn't occurred to me. And of course, they were trying to make me sick. And only afterwards, I discovered the reason they were having so much trouble, they'd auditioned 500 people for this job. 500. And the people who weren't sick couldn't talk. And the people who could talk were violently sick. So by dint of the fact that I didn't vomit and I could vaguely string a sentence together, I got the job. And he phoned me. I went into the studio, did a little thing with Graham Dean that day. And then they said, "Well, we'll phone you at the end of next week." This was a Friday. I said, "Okay," because I didn't care. It wasn't, I was very happy being a writer. And they phoned me the same day, the same Friday, which never happens with an audition, and said, "Oh, we'd like to offer you the job." And I found myself saying, Would you mind if let me think about it? Can you imagine? Can I think about it? So there was this shocked voice, and the guy said, when do you think you could get back to us? I said, well, it's Friday. I'll get back to you Monday, Mr. Casual here. And I thought about it, and I went back and I said, I'll tell you what, I'm not sure this is for me, but let's do it for 2 weeks. And if it doesn't work out, no harm done. You can get somebody else. If it works out, I signed a 2-week contract, and it lasted 20 years. And the guy who auditioned me was a wonderful guy who's still a very close friend there, called David Briggs. And he created a little thing called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Wow.
Yeah, the biggest quiz show in the history of television, which, you talk about trying. He punted around after he left Capital, he went into TV, etc. And he punted that around. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was originally called Cash Mountain. 2 years, no one was interested. Couldn't get it off the ground. Everyone thought it was rubbish.
Yeah, yeah.
And then somebody took a punt.
Wow. Now, let me ask you a question, right? Did you ever get sick up in the plane?
No, I was never sick, but it was physically very uncomfortable.
Can you imagine it being terrifying? I couldn't have done it.
It wasn't, well, when things went wrong, it was very frightening. We had one huge incident. How I wasn't killed, I don't know. That was a miracle. It's as near to death as I ever want to come. Thank you so much. But we had passengers every day because every charity in the world would write to Capital Radio. Oh, we're having a ball, we're having an auction, we're having this. And eventually, it got so popular that there was an 18-month waiting list, 18 months to come up as a passenger in the Flying Eye. Now, I've got a job to do because I was on that and Capital Gold. So I'm busy. Every passenger was sick. It was ghastly. Imagine you're trying to work. Imagine you're at Ronnie Scott's and everyone's just coming up and vomiting over your music sheets. That's what my day was like every day.
Plus, I've had it with the drunks at Christmas time.
Oh, this is horrible.
I can't believe. So, how many people did that plane see?
Oh. Wow. We only took off with 4. I think it was a 6-seater. We had 2 planes because one got destroyed. One got completely destroyed. I mean, literally destroyed. It was a little twin-engined, tiny little plane.
Yeah.
And when you see them being rebuilt and everything, there's no safety whatsoever.
It's like balsa wood, yeah?
It's made of, it's like an Airfix kit. There's nothing. It's not like a car. You haven't got crumple zones.
So it's just sort of up there. It
was just horrible. So we got away with it once, badly. We had other things happen. And eventually, after 20 years, to be honest, I thought, you know what? I'm really pushing my luck here. I'm pushing my luck. And at that point, my wife had passed. And I thought, I've got to be a bit more careful because the kids were only 5. And I thought, no, this is... And I always promised myself when I stopped enjoying it, when it stopped being fun, I would stop.
Yeah.
And after 20 years, Chris had gone. And then I went from mornings to afternoons. And then they said, oh, you can't speak to anybody. Neil Fox and I were furious because Neil and I are very good mates. And we couldn't talk to each other at all. We weren't allowed. And I thought, this is boring. And I'm not enjoying it. Yeah. And 20 years was a fantastic run. It was wonderful. I enjoyed every single second of it.
Incredible.
Never thought of it as work.
What you just said when you just said about your wife Sally dying prematurely, and I like to keep these upbeat, but it's important in your life because you've done so much. And the song that I would always put to you would be that old one, pick yourself up and dust yourself off, start all over again. And that's the kind of guy you seem to be, because you just touch upon how long did I know that grief doesn't go away, because my wife lost her dad prematurely as well, and she's still there 10 years later. And how have you coped with that? Just in a nutshell, how have you done that?
You don't.
I can't imagine how you would do it.
Had I not had the kids, who knows? But I did. And and then thank goodness somebody came into my life and was magnificent about it. But what choice have you got? You can either sit down in the gutter and just get run over and that's it, or you gotta press on. And they were, they needed looking after, they needed cherishing, they needed loving, and that was it. I didn't see that there was a choice. It was that simple.
That's very interesting.
And does grief go away? No, of course not. I mean, the great lie is time is a great healer. Time is not a great healer. What you do is with any of these situations, with my parents who both passed, you adapt. You adapt, and that's all there is to it. It doesn't go away. It's not human nature for it to go away. But what it is you adapt. And I don't live in the past. I live in the present. I look forward to the future. If you get stuck in the past, what's the point?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So a lot of people I grew up with of my age, or not a few of them, they're very dear friends, but they're stuck in the past. And I'm the same. I believe in moving. I believe in taking from the past, but you've got to move forward. But while we're talking about
what was a pivotal moment for me, I'll tell you what was a pivotal moment for me. I'm not going to mention any names, so please don't ask. I was invited to a book launch of a well-known district who I'd never met. I'd never met this broadcaster, but I think the PR people knew me and said, "Oh, come on." So going along, and it was December. It was a very nice do, nice wine. Everyone was very charming and friendly, and it was great. And then all I got from all these people, these were all the old style DJs. I'm not going to go into any names, but you can think who they were. And all I heard from, when you're at a cocktail thing or any do, you go from one group to another, and the conversation was always the same about the good old days, and it's not the same. And they were very nice. Don't misunderstand. They're very nice people. And I remember I left and I stood on the corner of the street in London. It was freezing cold December. And I thought, I don't want to be those guys. I don't want to be looking back and saying the good old days. And I want to look forward, because otherwise your life's over. What's the point?
Right.
So it was a real seminal moment for me. And although the event was very charming, but it was a wake-up call that I never wanted to. It's never been my nature to hark back.
But out of all the people, you're just saying all these things, so interesting how you've coped. But out of everybody I know, we all know a lot of people. You seem to have done more than most. And I just wanted to, because last time we met, we had a cigar, we had a chat, and a nice thing, and you somehow touched upon your interesting experience at managing the girl band.
Oh,
are you up for just talking a little bit about that?
Very briefly, because otherwherwise I'm going to throw myself off a roof.
And how it was.
People kept saying to me for years, "Oh, you would make a great manager." I said, "Really? Would I?" "Oh, you'd make a great manager. You should manage." And I stupidly listened to them. It was the worst thing I'd ever done. It was the worst decision I ever made, personally, financially, in every single way. I can't tell you how much it nearly destroyed me. And I freaking hated it, and I hated them, all of them.
We
managed a lot of, we had quite a roster of artists.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought
my partner and I, we had a big roster of artists, but Ray, I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to mention who they are. I mean, we poured a fortune into it. We got the very, very best people. You get the best writers. I mean, the best writers, the best producers from America, from Sweden, the best of the best choreographers, the best stylists, just poured a fortune into it. One, you can't take on the system. You are wasting your time. You can't do it. You cannot beat the majors. It's quite impossible. Two, I've never, ever, in all the things I've done, met such universally revolting people in my life. I've never seen them since the day I quit. I never want to see any of them again. They were
and they'll probably never listen to my podcast anyway, so
I don't give a monkeys. They were just everybody. Producers were horrible. You know, writers were. Everybody was horrible. I just like
Russ. I've been in that world as well, and I know. That's why I keep my thing a cottage industry, because I've been touched upon that
It was a shocking mistake.
But what epitomised it to me, the last thing what you said about it was when we met. What stayed in my mind was when you told me you were sitting in a service station in the car in the rain on your own.
No, it was my birthday.
And it was your birthday.
We just finished.
Sorry to laugh, but it's just.
It was my birthday. We just finished a mini tour. It was October, up north, and I dropped off. This was the girl band, and I dropped them off at various stations so they could all go home, because one lived in London, but the rest all wanted to get home and everything. So having driven, and I'd been behind the wheel for hours and hours and hours, and it was now late at night, and it's raining, of course. I mean, just like a movie. And now I'm hungry, and I'm thinking, Okay, so I pull into a service station, and the only thing that's open is Burger King. I never eat fast food. I never, ever. And I'm sitting basically alone in this huge service station. The rain's coming down on the windows. It's pitch black. It's my birthday. And I thought, what the hell am I doing? This isn't life. This is madness.
We've all been there, mate. You know,
I thought this is, and and then the personal cost, emotionally, relationship, everything. It was a nightmare because we put our heart and soul into it for about 6, 7 years. The worst thing was, now you're a musician, you're highly professional and you're highly regarded. Let's be serious. I know it makes me take the piss out of each other, but you are, right? So we would, like, for the girl band, we'd audition hundreds and hundreds of girls and to get the right form and everything like that. And they start off and they're fine. And you're pouring a fortune. Within a month, 2 months, they're impossible to deal with. Honestly, they think they're Celine Dion or something. You know, you've taken someone who's flipping burgers, up north. I'm not being rude about flipping burgers or being up north, neither. What I'm saying is they were not established artists, or the most they've ever done is sung in a pub. We took them to being on tour, doing 32 arenas. We did 4 nights at the O2.
The more you do from Russ, the more they hate you.
They hated me.
No,
they
because
hated me. They hated my partner, and it's like, wait a minute. 5 minutes ago, you're singing in your local pub to 3 people. You're now singing at the O2 Arena in London to 15,000 people for 4 nights,
and they hate you.
And it was the classic thing. The last gig we ever did. Right? They wouldn't even talk. I had to get text messages from them. They were in the same room.
It's just crazy, mate.
I thought,
this is good stuff for the listeners, because it's a good story. Do you know what? So you do that, right? But you're a drummer too. Let's carry on from you. You're a drummer, okay? You're a drummer. We'll get on to that second. Did this put you off music? Did this put you off?
Yeah, completely. I can't listen to music. Neither myself nor my partner can listen to music. It's taken me years to be able to even start to listen to music. And if a modern singer comes on, I have to flick channels. It's like a sort of the most visceral, horrible reaction. That every emotion comes back to me. It's extraordinary what it does to me. It's not even a red rag to a bull. It almost destroys me. Yeah. So I only listen to audiobooks and I listen to talk radio stations. And what turned it for me was somebody said to me, it was just a pal of mine, who said, "You're putting all this effort and everything. Why don't you just promote yourself?" I said, "What?" He said, "They haven't got the talent.
There you go. Yeah.
Why don't you just promote yourself?" And I'm not like that. I thought, oh no, I don't think so. I like to be behind. And then I thought, this is stupid. I mean, I'll give you an example. We had a singer who wasn't the band; it was a singer. She had a very good voice, as it so happens. And then you turn up an hour and a half. This is like, we're doing everything. Taken across to Sweden and everything. And she turns up, my partner and I was waiting for her. She's an hour and a half late for a meeting. I said, "Where have you been?" "Well, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, what? An hour and a half late to meet us. And the best thing was, and this is where I blame Cowell, and I've known Simon Cowell for years, personally, he's a very nice man. As a person, I wouldn't want to do any business with him, but he's charming. And the classic phrase she said to my partner, "I was born to be a diva." What are you talking about? This was the person. We got the best producers in Britain. And we got a phone call. "Russ, we love working with you," and my partner's name. "Love working with you. Don't ever send this person to me again." I said, "What's the matter?" Now, when you're writing, you use what they call just a click, just to get the time. It just literally does that. Yeah. It's just a sound that just, so you can get the rhythm, you get the beats per minute, so you can start writing. Yeah. This idiot took an hour. She didn't like the tone of the click. This is just doing. Didn't like the tone. They wasted an hour. Remember, this is costing a fortune. I thought these people are just not worth.
And then you realise, right, when
Not
you
worth
come
my
across
time.
that there's just no hope with certain people like that, and there's no hope, no point in trying.
The whole thing is this. A lot of it is this X Factor thing, which if it was just light entertainment would be fine. But what it's done is brought up a generation who think you can do it. Now, you're a professional. You've been doing this for years, Ray. You have skill, right? The whole X Factor nonsense is you can go from nothing to being a multimillionaire in 4 weeks.
Sure.
And all your life will be fabulous. Life isn't like that.
And how many songs do you know?
Think it is?
They know 3 songs. I'm saying, how many songs do these people? Most of them know 2 or 3 songs. To be a proper professional performer, you've got to have a repertoire. They don't get taught. They've got. So if it fails, right, Russ, which it's going to do with 99 or 98% of these people fail. If they at least had a repertoire of say, you know, an hour's material, they could at least go do a gig and fulfill something in their musical, you know, life. Trouble is they don't, and that's why they end up doing
it as a hobby. I mean, you know, the other thing which I rarely get the chance to talk about, but I'd like to, because you're a musician. We did a lot of school tours. If you're not in the music business, you wouldn't know that most bands, even from One Direction onwards, you do a school tour. That's how you build up your fan base.
Yeah,
and then it grows from there. School tours are a very well-known thing, and so we toured schools from Scotland to Wales, everywhere. I put on tens and tens of thousands of miles behind the wheel, driving everybody around. And every teacher in every school around the UK would say the same thing to me, and it was very, very telling. I can't sing, right? You can sing and play. I can't sing. But everyone, so I'm no good at athletics. I know that. So in the old days, you could say, you know what, Mary or Peter, maybe singing isn't your strongest point, but why don't we do some acting, or why don't you go behind the scenes and direct or produce or paint the scenery? Or, you know, it's just, you can't do that anymore, because what every teacher said to me the next day, the parents would come storming into the school, start screaming and shouting literally at the teacher, you can't tell my daughter or son that blah, 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 because they're hoodwinked by this bullshit that comes on a Saturday. It used to come on a Saturday night. It's madness.
Unbelievable we've gone in this direction, because I feel exactly the same way about it. I feel that I can't go in the boxing ring. I might want to be a boxer, but I haven't got the bloody aptitude to do it, or whatever. Nowadays, everybody seems to think they can sing. I mean, I've had people contacting me about Ronnie Scott several times, or 100 times. Oh, Ray, my daughter or my girlfriend, the last one, is a great singer. Can she come and join you at Ronnie Scott's? Now, I'm not an arrogant person. What am I going to say? So I'll try to say, well, look, it's not Ronnie's policy. What I really want to say is, listen, it took me 20 years to get in this club of queuing up in the bloody foyer, talking to Pete King, who was a Rottweiler, this guy, the late, great Pete King, Ronnie's partner. And he would just say, oh, come back next year, son. Blah, blah. And it took me 20 years of bringing reviews into him. I'm too polite. I'll just say, well, it's not the policy. But you've got to say, you've got to earn these things. You've got to have the talent and then the drive. If you don't have either, you know, but a lot of people who want to sing, they don't simply have the talent. Do they?
I'm laughing because we would have choreographers and vocal coach. We got the best of the best. And I looked one day, and one of the kids is miming in rehearsals. And I went, I'm sorry, what are you doing? She's miming in rehearsal.
Miming?
I hadn't even learnt the words.
No,
I mean,
it's
costing you hundreds of pounds an hour. Hundreds. And
it's a devalued. Music has become a devalued skill. But the positive side of it, Russ, is I believe this pandemic, for all its terrible things, has brought the positives out. That those of us who can play and sing and who can do it can still manage to cobble together a show online. You know, if you've got to have the talent to do that, you can't mime. No, so in one sense, I do believe that the talent will shine through. But let me just go. So you did the music, all this business. It sounds like a bloody nightmare.
It was horrible. Even talk about it now, it actually makes me feel.
I can see.
Makes me feel quite ill.
You're punching this little TV screen. I can see you through.
I'm really, if I could do it all again, I'd be Don Arden. I would be a monster because that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, and you realise why some of these people were monsters.
I totally, absolutely get the Don Arden approach. That would have been, God forbid, I ever had to do it again.
Or the Buddy Rich approach as a band leader.
I would be a monster like they were, because that's the only way that you would get any result.
But I was just going to move on to the fact that you're also this man who is Russ Kane of many talents, is a novelist with your Gatekeeper novel, which is incredible, and got some wonderful endorsements by people like Anthony Horowitz. It's incredible.
I mean,
what's going on with the book now? What's happening?
That's probably the greatest accolade of my entire life. That's the thing. If you say, what's the most thing you're most proud of, even including Capital, we had 4 million listeners a day and all the rest of it. Getting that quote from Anthony Horowitz, who is one of my writing heroes, means more to me than all of it put together. That's how much it meant to me. It was incredible. I've admired Anthony Horowitz for so many years, and now we've met, which was incredible. I kept pinching myself, to be perfectly honest. He's a charming, charming man, and so damn talented. I've only ever wanted to be a writer. I only wanted to be a writer since I was 7. That was it. I had no interest in anything else. And if you said you've got to do one thing, well, writing, that would be it. If you could only ever do it. Yeah. I love the writing process. I am a year behind with the follow-up to The Gatekeeper. I mean, The Gatekeeper did okay, did well, was nicely received. People seem to like it. I am a year behind because the pandemic just put my brain into neutral in so many ways. But I've got to get onto it because my literary agent is getting very fed up with me, and I don't blame him. I just couldn't do it. I'm up to chapter 5. Book 2 is called Invasion. The weird thing was that my second book was originally called Agenda 21, and it was about vaccinations. And all the publishers said, really? No, we don't want that.
It'll never happen.
We don't want that. This was in 2018. And they said, oh, no, that's never going to work. We like your story. Could you make book 3, book 2? And I went, okay, whatever you want. That's what all the publishers said. And it's hilarious because now it would have been like a documentary.
Yeah. Unbelievable. You're ahead of your time. But
I was 2 years ahead of how the world.
So when do you reckon your second novel will be done, or is it impossible?
About 5:30 this afternoon, Ray, probably.
After I stop wasting your time.
No. It's going to take months. But I'm determined. I've got to do it. I can't let myself down. I can't let myself down. I can't let my agent down. And I would be not doing myself a favour. I'd be cross with myself if I hadn't written it. So it's a very interesting story.
But the problem is,
it's basically, in a nutshell, how would you control an entire nation? And this was all before all of this. The thing is, Ray, no matter how extreme I make the storyline, real life is more extreme.
Yeah, it's getting more extreme.
And I'm having to make it more and more crazy because life is so bonkers,
Isn't that something? I know you've told me the story about over a smoke. You've told me the story about the invasion, and it sounds bloody fantastic. I really look forward to reading. But listen, mate, we've done nearly an hour, so I'm worried this Zoom's going to run out, and we're going to have to worry about how to save the audio. But I just want to ask you that we've done the men. You're carrying on with the men's radio, which I enjoy very much.
I love doing that. It is a labor. It's not just a labor of love, but we get so many encouraging messages from all over the world saying thank you, because it's only about mental health and well-being. It's not a chit chat like this. We totally focus on mental health, well-being, suicide prevention, depression, and all areas of mental health. And it'll spike so badly in 2021 this year. There's no two ways about it. It was getting bad last year. So whatever we can do to help, we will. But we're trying. We'll do our best anyway. you know.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And I've listened to it, been a guest on it, and I think you're doing you and Phil are doing a wonderful thing.
Oh, thank you.
When you're back tomorrow?
Yeah. We started Monday. We're back again tomorrow. And what is interesting, some really great broadcasters out of the blue are contacting me. Oh, we'd really like to come on, which is very flattering and wonderfly surprising.
Brilliant.
And I'm very honoured to have them on board.
It's the positive, Russ. The positive side of social media is doing stuff like that. And what I've seen other people do, of getting on and doing something positive, because we don't want to get in this now, but as we were discussing quite recently, places like Twitter and whatever, they can be the most toxic, horrendous sewers of platforms. And sometimes, at least, when you do something like the Facebook Live stuff, it's putting a bit of positivity to social media.
Because I know you phone me, because sometimes you're foaming at the mouth and absolutely fuming.
Yeah.
And I go, right, there's nothing you can do about it. Ignore it. Don't engage. If you engage with them, you're pouring petrol on a fire. It's just
can't win.
Just
you can't win.
You're never going to win it. You can't fix stupid.
You can't. And
you know what it's about? It's about when we were growing up, you'd have a discussion in a bar or something, and you say, well, we'll agree to disagree, and you'd shake hands.
Sure.
That's fine. You can have your view, I can have my view. But now that's not allowed. It's like your view's the only view that's right.
Yeah.
And everybody else is a moron.
And as I commented on I commented on your thing yesterday, and again, we don't want to get political here or whatever, but I have found some of the most horrendous, horriblest, worst people I've dealt with have all the right stuff in their bio. Caring people, stop the war, NHS, and they've turned out to be the most horrendous
monsters.
Listen, finally, right? Finally, when we I want to wrap this by asking you something. One, we're good cigar smoking buddies, right? And it's one way we have a good time. What does a kind of good cigar mean to you? What is the
everything?
What do you get out of it?
It's like meditation. It's the ritual of the cigar. It's the cutting of the end, the smelling it first, the feeling it, even listening to it, the anticipation of enjoying it, the whole lighting process, that first wonderful puff, and then as the complexity of the cigar changes, because it should be in 3 stages. It's just a wonderful thing. It gives you a feeling of well-being. It gives you a feeling that life's not so terrible. And it's just for that 40 minutes, hour, depends on the length of the cigar and how long you got. You can just be in a different world. And it's quite meditative. I like it.
Well, Russ, I really hope, mate, that we can meet for a cigar very, very soon. But I just want to say, you've been one of our most interesting guests. So many thanks for coming on to Gelato's Parlour.
Thank you. You're very kind.
See you soon.
And I look forward to seeing you at some point in the near future. Take care.
Buddy. Bye.
Well, that was my very special guest, Mr. Russ Kane. What an interesting fella. We're going to have many more guests on Gelato's Parlour, and I do appreciate you for continuing to listen. If you want, you can leave a very small contribution. I've got a PayPal link up, and it does help me keep these things going. Please be kind enough to leave some nice reviews. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, but reviews really help me, so thank you very much. Hope you continue to listen. Goodbye until the next time.